Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Now I want to talk about a very interesting book, certainly a mind-blowing book. And very interesting because you don't hear much coming out from China. And this is China's Super Psychics, written by Paul Dong and Thomas Rathville. What's interesting about it is that as I said, you don't get much from Asia. I mean, Asia is a very mystical place, and they believe in a lot of different energies. As a matter of fact, the Chinese have a god for everything. You could almost equate them with the Hindus and the amount of gods they have. And I don't think many people talk about that. You know, we know of some gods, and we see a few of them, and I guess there's a certain amount of gods that are very commonly used. The problem is that as usual, we don't know much about anything, and kind of their mysticism, Taoism, which can be very magical, we don't really know that much about. People follow martial arts and things, but a lot of these things, which are, they're punchers and kickers. I haven't met too many martial artists, even Asians, that really are spiritual, kickers and punchers. People think there's something great there. It's not. It's more of a physical fitness and protection to them. So we just don't know anything at all, but we do know a lot about certain businesses. Like there's a recent issue came up in a Hong Kong, I think it was in Hong Kong, they built a giant building, and on top of it they put a feng shui cannon there, a huge cannon, must be like 60, 70 feet long, on top of the building. Now this is to project energy from competition and naysayers, people who are projecting bad energy onto them, back to the people sending it to them or away from them. And God knows what that actually costs. Can you imagine going to an American board of directors, building some sort of building, and telling them what you're going to put this giant magical thing on the top of the building, and probably going to cost a fortune? I'm assuming the people that make and build these things are highly prized, like most shamans, and paid well for it. And all the buildings do that. And, the casino in Las Vegas, the MGM casino there, had to change their entire building because it had bad feng shui, and they had a lot of Chinese coming there. So they spent millions to fix that. So this is a reality. The Chinese also see the wearing of white is what you wear to a funeral. Now, again, West is black, Chinese are white. So if someone says that they're wearing white for some reason, that this is good, well, they don't understand the Chinese. It shows you how dumb they are. So that's something that is there. And the Chinese do not wear white, period, because it's a sign of death. Get it? How many people even know that? Well, I think very few people know that. One of the many urban myths you don't know about, the disinformation, the nonsense that's been told you, and everything else. And certainly there isn't any great spiritual movement in any place on this planet. Certainly they're not superior to anybody else, just like the Tibetans, which is nothing more than a hierarchical society based on religion. So the whole idea is they have a head of a church running the country. What? I mean, that kind of stuff shouldn't go on. What's so special about that? What's so special about the Chinese? Now, the Chinese seem to have invented lots of things, and yes and no. So certainly there is a progressive society there to a degree. But you're talking about 1.5 billion people, so what it comes down to is a fight for survival at any cost. So that's a very negative society. They're highly exploited by the West still, whilst the top Chinese make all the money and the other people are slaves. Gee, how different that is. Must be all them Chinese gods helping them, huh? Sounds just like America. The top 2% make all the money like it is all over the world. So their thought systems are different, just like Russian or communism, which really is a type of national social dictatorship, just a gang, is the same way. So the entire world works the same. It doesn't matter what their, quote, religious or spiritual beliefs are. And you have to understand what these societies are and the kind of craziness that the Chinese have been talking for many years. including the fact that they're going to invade Taiwan at all costs. We'll do whatever it takes to take that little island back. Like, who cares? What do they? They want more people. So they fled there. They call themselves Taiwan now. They're not even known as China anymore. What's the point? They also do a huge amount of business with Taiwan. Mainland China does all sorts of billions and billions and billions of dollars. So they work together all the time, yet their rhetoric is we're going to take over and blow you to smithereens. So this is very typical of Chinese, and you got to understand, just like the Russians, it's a tough man act. And apparently this machoism, which people like to point towards other cultures, is all over the world. And it's important to understand this when you get into Chinese Super Psychics by Paul Dong, D-O-N-G. Now you can find this book. It's been out of print for some time, so usually if you try and buy a copy of this, it costs you a lot of money used. But I've seen it all over the web for free. So you just got to try and look for different areas where you can download it for free. It is there. It's out of print. I've seen this book go for as much as $200. It's dropped down again. But it is out all over the place for free, and it's out of print. So the bottom line is you're not doing anybody any favors by buying the book. You're not helping the author. You're not helping the publisher. You're helping a used book dealer. Well, that's low on my list. So, but Paul Dong's an interesting writer. Now, what he's done he's written also the famous book on empty power. Now, this is where you can build enough power of chi in you, where you can actually punch people at a distance, where you can project your energy. So it's about building super amounts of chi. Which is a very interesting book, and I'll cover that somewhere else. But what's interesting in that book, which I caught, is, first of all, the system is standing still for hours and hours to build chi. I don't think that's even real. But what he says in that book is very interesting, which has to be understood, is that, real Chinese don't think that teaching Westerners is appropriate because they don't have the temperament, and these are Chinese secrets, basically. This is the problem we had with Bruce Lee, is that the Chinese didn't like him teaching, and maybe the reason why he was murdered, because he was not teaching only Chinese, and he himself was a quarter German, apparently. So he, grandfather, whatever it was, he had a quarter German in him. He wasn't full Chinese. So this became a real problem. So like everybody, because it's only them white Nazis, well, the bottom line is that everybody is prejudiced. And the Chinese are very prejudiced, particularly the Japanese are extremely prejudiced as well. Everybody likes their own people and so forth. And I don't have a problem as long as you're not hurting other people. I think everyone grows better in their own societal structure around their same people. And while you want to exchange some sort of information and customs to a degree, I don't think that helps you as a person. Alien belief systems are generally not taken in well to do much help for you. So, but this is a very fascinating book and a one of a kind as far as I'm concerned. I've never seen, well, there are Taoist magic books. I've never seen a overview of this, and it's well documented. We don't know. He's translated all this stuff supposedly from journals in China. And how much of this is real, how much is not, but the feats that are discussed in here are mind-blowing of what the psychics, how the system goes, how certain people are watched as children and taken because they have certain abilities. How much of this is going on, I don't know. The actual communist government, a lot of times, were not in favor. People think that communists just, everything occult is good. They're all Ruskies. Yeah, we Ruskies. Well, from what I understand, this whole area was outlawed in the Soviet Union for many years. They considered it stupid superstition. It wasn't until certain healing crises and other things happened in Russia, because I believe it was outlawed under Stalin, and things didn't loosen up for many years later when people said, well, we're going to accept this. You can do research into it. But it was considered a lot of Western stupidness, foo-foo nonsense that wasn't getting you anywhere. Get back to studying science. And this was not real science. So the lack of religion in the Soviet Union certainly didn't do anything for them either. So, I mean, they're one of the most brutalist, obnoxious, backward countries you can find. So, certainly communism or the lack of Christian God forms didn't help them at all. And you could say the same thing with China. I don't see any great developments there because they had a unique god system of multi-gods. Some of their stuff is, of course, very childish. Rivers were formed from dragons. They believe in all these dragons that help them, etc. And of course, this could be interpreted for where it probably came from, which is the actual Atlanteans, that these were energies. That a river being a dragon is not really a river in terms of they're talking about the energetic nature of the water moving in a, quote, river, not necessarily a dragon. So like everything, they have their very interesting points in a lot of the world all works the same. It's a corrupt sewer. And that's what it's all about. People at the top exploit everybody else. They can use whatever window dressing they want to use, whether that's a Christian cross, a Jewish star, or a Chinese Buddha. They're all the same, and it's just an illusion. They are not good spiritual people. They are nothing but corrupt people based in finance. Money, money, money. It's just sex and power. Nothing's new. And no culture has went past that. So to think that there's something elite about Tibetans or Asian philosophies is ridiculous. Look at their societies. And nobody has achieved anything of any kind of value. So, and of course, the reason why certain countries have gotten by, and that's particularly most of Asia, particularly Japan and now China, is because it's a giant corrupt system that is using slave labor, militaries, prisoners to get ahead. And of course, the government pays for everything. Can you imagine if the government paid all the businesses for all the great minds, the very entrepreneurial faction that most Americans have just by being in the society? Can you imagine that? You know, in Japan, they have technology. Everybody has the same technology. They'll give you, there is no exclusive technology. So if you want to make cars or copy machines or cameras, all of this stuff is in the, quote, public domain. And what they do is everybody gets it. They will also give you robots and support you in many ways so you can produce things. They're interested in producing companies that produce high quality products, not that you have something special, which of course makes sense. And a lot of these things, of course, were based on the famous business person Dennings, who most of the Japanese follow as a way of management. So it's a rigged game again, and America continues with its horrible corruption, stupid mentalities to really kick the ass of the entire world when it comes to business. We just give it away because the rich people at the top don't care. All they care is how much money they make, and if they have to live in a sewer, well, they just hire more cops to shoot you in the head, so they keep you away, and they don't care. They're not going to pay your medical bills. They're not going to give you good wages. What do they care? And that's the way the world is everywhere. So getting back to this book, I mean, it is a large book, and it is mind-blowing what they state. And, of course, he goes into where they come from, and there's 1,000 apparently in one town, if you're talking about China. There's 1,000 institutes studying these things or not. So I don't know how factual this is. And there are certain problems that are horrible with the entire industry, but well known to be very fraudulent coming from the Soviet Union, Russia, and China. You know, they're not going to produce that they couldn't. And again, I believe Mao Zedong was against all of this stuff. So this is something that has been kept down. Acupuncture and other things have been industrialized. And a lot of these things are frowned upon. They want to move to the West. This is old Chinese crap is how they think a lot of this stuff. You'd think they're honoring their culture and doing this. Well, they're not. And they certainly aren't using acupuncture when it comes to so many treatments. They import, tons and tons of pain medications and anesthesias and everything else, which supposedly you wouldn't have to need with certain things. And most treatments tend to be conventional. They have lots of drugs they use, etc., etc. So people aren't living this Chinese lifestyle out of a bad Hollywood movie. If you think that is a reality, you're wrong. But reading this book is like reading a comic book. It is so outrageous of what they're able to do that it is staggering to think that they couldn't take over the world just psychically. What they're doing, how these are kept, and you got to remember there's two big secrets in this world that are suppressed. The top secret is these kind of psychotronic psychic empowerment. What's really going on and the technologies connected to this, from mind reading to projecting out for destruction of psychotronic devices, is mind-boggling and a super secret in the Soviet Union and the rest of the world, including China, who's involved in it as well. The other area, of course, is extraterrestrial contact and involvement. These are the two hot issues that it's near impossible to get good information about. But there's a lot of people who've come out with extraterrestrial information and even government sources. But you don't get any of that type of thing for these mind machines, radionics, psychotronics, or the entire psychic area. There's very little information out there. Here's one of the few books, if probably the only book, on Chinese psychic experiments and research. I don't know of any others, and I don't know how he got the information, etc. But he is a writer, he is well known, and certainly, obviously, is Chinese and has translated these. But he's translated them with the Chinese prejudice